We have enough members present so we can at least start debate. We will vote on several nominees and a piece of legislation. 3 judicial nominees are on the agenda for the first time. When we get a quorum, we will hold them over at the minority's request. The following nominees would be held over then: Britt Grant, 11th Circuit; Alan Windsor, North District, Florida; Patrick Wyrick, Western District, Oklahoma. Today, along with several other nominees, we're voting on the nomination of Ryan Bounds to the 9th Circuit. Some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle were critical of the hearing for Mr. Bounds because the Oregon senators did not return blue slips. As I've explained about that policy with this chairmanship, consistent with all but 2 of my 18 predecessors, is that negative or unreturned blue slips will not necessarily prevent a circuit court nominee from receiving a hearing unless White House failed to consult with home state senators. In the case of Mr. Bounds, the White House sought the Oregon senators' input, seriously considered the one candidate suggested by the Oregon senators, and waited several months for senators to establish their judicial selection committee. The selection committee itself recommended Mr. Bounds, yet the Oregon senators didn't return the blue slip. I'm satisfied that the White House adequately consulted with the home state senators, and I've stated that I will not let home state senators have ideological reasons for not returning the blue slip. Accordingly, I gave Mr. Bounds a hearing. I know there are some confusion regarding some of Mr. Bounds' college writing. The hearing gave Mr. Bounds a chance to explain that the Oregon judicial selection process never asked for his college writings. In fact, Senator Wyden's staff instructed him not to disclose them. The hearing gave Mr. Bounds a chance to a chance to answer questions about these writings, and I'm glad that Mr. Bounds had the opportunity to clarify the confusion surrounding the issue. I hope that we don't live in a world where controversial things that we write in college end our careers forever. And this is especially true with our kids and grandkids on social media, because this senator even gets into a lot of trouble by the things I say on social media. And I'm 84 years old, so give some leeway. See, by the way, our team beat your team 10-0 last night. I hope that you understand that it was a friendly competition, though, even though that we really beat you.
What was the sport?
Your softball team. Yeah. Well, you ought to keep up with that. They fought hard to keep up the reputation of your office, but they didn't do very well.
Would that be the Duck Durbin softball team? Duckworth Durbin, Duck Durbin.
Okay.
Never mind.
But just thought I'd tell you. For example, a few years ago, I supported the confirmation of then Justice Wright to the Minnesota District Court, despite her controversial law school writings. We shouldn't assume that views expressed years ago during college and law school represent the nominee today, especially when the nominees tell us that they don't. Let's let all 100 senators, not just 2, decide whether Mr. Bounds deserves to be confirmed. In addition to nominations, we will be considering one opioid-related bill, 2837, Preventing Drug Diversion Act, was held over from our last meeting. This bill was introduced by Senator Hassan, and I am a co-sponsor. This bill, Preventing Drug Diversion, works to codify provisions of the current DEA regulations on suspicious orders. It also calls for greater cooperation between the federal government and states in identifying and stopping suspicious orders. We also have on the agenda the CREATES Act. That's 974. That will be held over. This is a very important piece of legislation, co-sponsored by several members of this committee, that promotes generic drug competition by curbing abuses of the FDA REMS process. We'll talk more about that bill next week, but this is a bill that needs to get to the President of the United States. Also, S-2245, the Knowledgeable Innovators and Worthy Investment Act, and I guess that's called the Kiwi Act for short, is on the agenda for the first time and will be held over. This bipartisan bill by Senators Hirono and Lee would extend trade and investors' visas to New Zealand citizens. New Zealand is one of our most important allies, happens to be one of the 5 I intelligence sharing countries, and the country that doesn't have access to our treaty trader visas. This bill will ensure that New Zealanders continue to make investments in the U.S. economy. I'm ready, before Senator Feinstein speaks, we do have enough members present, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we will hold over the nominees that I mentioned. Senator Feinstein.